Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Katy Dammers, an artistic producer here at FringeArts, and welcome to the Fringe Festival. Today you are at a launch talk as part of our presentation of TrailOff, and we'll be speaking specifically with author Ari, who's here today, as well as Adrienne Mackey from Swim Pony. Before we begin, I just want to give a little bit of context about our festival. Here in the year of 2020, we are presenting a new hybrid festival of live and digital work. And we really appreciate you joining us as we transition to platforms like this, Zoom and others, that allow us to continue to present art in safe and socially distanced ways. One of the great things about presenting a primarily digital festival is that geography is not quite the same barrier that it used to be. So whether you have friends in Los Angeles or Australia or London, we hope that you'll help spread the word and invite them to join you. Whereas previously people needed to be close to Philadelphia to attend the festival, that's no longer the case, which we think in some ways is an advantage. And while you're at it, we hope you might consider supporting Fringe Arts through the purchase of a membership or sharing one with a friend as a gift. Before we get started with today's presentation, just a bit of Zoom housekeeping. You are attending this presentation this evening in Zoom, as I'm sure many of you are familiar with, or you might be watching this after the fact. Just a note to everybody that we're recording this so that people can watch the presentation thereafter. We ask that you keep your video off and mute yourself throughout the presentation so we can focus on our presenters. And then we ask that you're kind and respectful in the chat, though you can certainly put questions in there or any comments as we hear from Ari and others. Today's talk is part of the many different launch talks that we've been doing in partnership with TrailOff, which is part of the curated program of our Fringe Festival, and a presentation in collaboration with Swim Pony, the Pennsylvania Environmental Council, Toaster Lab, and Michael Kiley. This is an incredible work, a hugely collaborative one. Truly, hundreds of people have been involved in crafting this. And it's a transmedial audio storytelling experience that you access with your body and your mobile phone. So after I finish speaking, I'll put the link in the chat and you can go ahead and download the app, now available for iOS, soon to be coming to other phones. And on the app, you'll be able to see a collection of 10 different stories, newly commissioned by Philadelphia area artists for different trails in the extensive Circuit Trail network. You download the app, decide which trail you'd like to get yourself to the trail, and then these stories are geolocated, so they specifically match and evolve as you move across the trail yourself. It's a super exciting, immersive theatrical experience that is also completely safe for this COVID experience. So we hope that you will download the app and try out the piece yourself. But in the meantime, thank you for joining us today to hear a little bit more about Ari and the trail that they were a part of crafting a story for. So to begin, Ari, I wonder if you can just introduce yourself and maybe give a little bit of background about your story before we listen to an excerpt.
Of course. Can you hear me okay? All right, I'm Ari. I am one of the authors for the trail. Mine was the Chester Valley Trail. Little things about me. I'm 5'10", 5'11" when I puff my chest out. I was really inspired by Aztec mythology. I'd been working on it for a long time. I'd been thinking a lot in other projects, how I would involve this. And after reading and reading and reading, I was inundated with it. And when this project came up to me, I decided this was the place to use all that information. I'm a teacher. I work at Esperanza Cyber Charter School, teaching English as a second language. I'm a poet. I've made one sculpture, so I'll say I'm a sculptor. It was very big, so I think it counts. But that's more or less what I am. We're going to start with this story straight at the beginning, if I'm not mistaken. I would call this an underworld journey and another journey of trans acceptance and family.
Great. Well, thank you, Ari. We are now going to listen to the beginning portion of their story, and it's about 2 minutes.
And I'll go ahead and throw just a picture up of the trail so we have a little something to look at while we listen.
Adrienne, I think the only snag is that we can't both share at the same time. So I'm so glad we can all see the Chester Valley Trail.
No worries. I will stop the
Right,
screen
of
share.
Helpful to have that image. We can imagine being there. I'm going to play the audio and encourage you to close your eyes or focus inward as we go on this journey in the underworld. And then we will definitely have some more opportunities to see images and a sense of the trail itself in a moment.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Wait up. Please. You have to help me. There's been a... We need to get someone. Señora. Por favor. Estoy... Necesito...
They can't hear you. And they can't see you. Walk with me.
I'm dead, right? We're dead.
You're dead. Walk with me.
Are you... Death?
I'm Dog.
We just, live here now. Hell's just chalked. Is this like an unfinished business thing? Like, I go home, haunt a little, forgiven in a foggy mirror, and then I'm out. Is Jesus...
No. You died of unnatural causes. We take the path, and I help you pass on.
Okay, boss. We can do that. What's the knife for?
All right, that concludes. Thanks.
So this is Adrienne Mackey. I'm the artistic director of Swim Pony and the lead artist on the project. And I just want just to give a shout out there, both to you, Ari, as the main character, Luce, and also Jay Hernandez, who plays Dog there. I wonder if you could give us, before we jump back into a little bit of a video of you and Pennsylvania Environmental Council Program Manager Lizzie Hessick on the trail, if you can just talk about some of the other pantheon of Aztec gods that appear in the story, just to get us just like a little bit of who else users might get to see if they go out onto the trail.
Yeah, for fans of the Aztec pantheon at large, there we have Coatlicue, the Earth Mother.
Who's voiced by Diana Rodriguez.
Oh my gosh, she is spectacular. I want to say this specifically, that Adrienne did such an outstanding job with casting. Not only did I have no complaints, but everyone was even better than I could have imagined. Moving forward, we have Tlaloc, God of the Rain.
Who is played by Jaime Masada.
Yeah. And Xochipilli.
Who is played by Dito van Rigersberg.
Oh my God, spectacular. Yeah, these are respectively Earth Mother, God of the Rain, and the God of Flowers and Rebirth. I'm sorry, Xipetotec. I missed.
Yeah, I had a moment where I was like,
yeah.
I was like,
there are two separate ones. For flowers and spring, there's Xochipilli, who is specifically Flowers, drugs, prostitutes. Real fun time if you're hanging out with them. Xipetotec is the flayed god who is innately a little bit more unpleasant a visual that Xipetotec was flayed and his skin was put to the land and that became fertile earth. So that is why spring is this, and he is a god that sacrifices innately, but does so for the good of mankind.
And I wonder if you can talk a little bit about how, because I know just for folks who have never been there before, the Chester Valley Trail is out in the burbs of Philadelphia. And I remember from your application for the TrailOff project that it was one that you really specifically said, like, I really want to work on this trail. And I wonder if you can talk a little bit about what it was that drew you to the trail. I think I know why, but maybe you can give some folks insight into why.
I actually grew up down the street from this trail, probably, I want to say maybe 1.5 miles, 2 miles. This trail, I went there a couple times, but the most vivid memory I have of it is running there with my father. My father, at the time, antelope of a man. He could run indefinitely. He could run at a very healthy pace. I was not given this gift. And I remember us running, and I felt pretty good. I had been running for a while. I was feeling strong. Asthma nowhere in sight. And then we're on the way back, and we stop for a second, and I immediately throw up on my shoes. So I had this charged memory with it in particular. And I had been bird watching for a long time in trails, both in Chester Valley and all around here. Yeah, Katy. It's in the story. So if you go there and you listen to it, there is a little part. It is much sadder in the story, but I just remember being very embarrassed in person. This entire area was huge for me. The burbs had a lot of more bird watchers than I would have expected. And I was involved with the YMCA's Earth Service Corps and with their birding organization. So I would go on trails all around Pennsylvania and New Jersey looking for birds. And I wasn't very good at identifying them, but I was very good at climbing mountains and eating sandwiches.
Awesome. Well, so I think what we'll do is I will jump in. This video is relatively extensive, so I'm just going to let it play. It's about 15 minutes long. And it's actually just you and Lizzie, who was our partner at the Pennsylvania Environmental Council, walking the trail and talking about it. This will give users like a little bit of a kind of behind the scenes before you go of some of the things to keep an eye out for. Yeah. So I'm going to attempt to do a little screen share action here.
We're on the Chester Valley Trail.
So excited.
Yeah.
I haven't been here in a long time.
When was the last time you were here?
Ooh, probably since we finished recording. I think I came here once with Adrienne to kind of give it a little bit of a roll, see when everything would be timed. But other than that, I haven't really been here at all.
But you grew up here.
Yeah, I grew up right behind us.
Over there.
Yes.
Can you tell me what it was like growing up here?
The cul-de-sac where my parents live was a very back. So if I wanted to do or go anywhere, I had to walk at least a mile.
Okay.
So that was an impasse for me, as we were speaking about it earlier, that I was very small and shaped like a kettle.
Right.
So getting through a hill that was a mile long, didn't care for it much.
So tell me about your TrailOff story.
Big question that I'd love to talk about. I feel like I've said my spiel 100 times and I still love it every time I say it. I would call it an underworld journey about being trans and about having a family that's trans. And all of these conversations that are had on the trail, in most cases, are the best case scenario of what it would be like to talk to a family member and to be trans with them. So I had a great time experiencing this from the terms of coming back to here, reclaiming this space, talking about myself, and for the first time really getting to be trans here, openly trans on the trail.
That was not your experience growing up?
No. I had a hard enough time telling people that I was bisexual, which is, I guess, a term that I don't care for a great deal anymore. It's something very fluid. And I came out solely as non-binary first. And then it got very confusing because I got very sure that I was a girl. And I think that's where I'm at right now. But I feel like non-binary femme is just cursive enough. And I think that it feels good to have a gender that's almost pretentious. So I really enjoy that. When I was here, I was a boy. I was very serious about it in some ways. I think looking back, there were times where I saw something different. And there were times that I remember on the other side of the spectrum where I said fucked up things about trans people, or I saw trans people, and I know other trans people that have gone through this, where they see that and they're immediately scared and they'll say some shit about it. And it's really just fear of becoming something else. And I remember my friend Liv gave me a big trash bag full of her old clothes and lots of skirts and dresses, something that I've never really afforded. I was never afforded the time, much less space or safety or comfort to try something like that on. And I remember doing it alone in my bathroom. It felt good. It felt weird. It felt alien. I felt like I had very long arms, but I loved it. And something that my mother and I had to overcome is that I think I was 18, I was going to go off to college, and she found a big trash bag full of things. And we got into an argument. And the argument was essentially just, you can't dress like this in North Philly. You can't be like this here because you'll be murdered.
Right.
And I understand that.
Yeah. The mothers, I feel like mothers are always thinking their kids are going to get murdered everywhere.
Definitely.
But.
And I mean, there have been attempts on my life before because of being trans. So it's not exactly like that was ill-founded, but it's the choice that I make. It's the choice that I made. And it was really something that we had to talk about. It wasn't exactly a good conversation, and it ended with her throwing out those clothes. It was convenient because they were already in the trash. But yeah, it was rough. And I'm even thinking about clothes now and thinking about the story. I refer to this idea of like not all girls, period, not all trans girls wear dresses and skirts and makeup. Some of them just work at Joanne Fabrics.
Mm-hmm.
So I like collared shirts, and I really like athleisure. And it's hard to put on makeup. No one ever taught me. And it's hard to paint my nails. They always come out chunky.
Ah, yes.
And that's something that I haven't really been, no one's ever taught me to be a girl. And when I was openly and when I tried, it wasn't dangerous. It was funny to me, which was almost not worse, different. And I remember more than once, even when I tried to be queer around here, that there was an air of ridicule to it. I think we talked earlier about this idea that very few of the roles that I got here in theater were not in drag.
Right.
And I think that that's definitely the mentality that's kept, especially around here, that being trans is funny, that being a girl with wide shoulders is funny. And I don't care for that. So,
Lantern fly.
yeah.
So your character Luce is played by you
Yes.
in TrailOff, and she is trans. Thank you. Very polite cyclist. What is her experience? So you mentioned that there's a experience of like a trans family, so the best case scenario that she meets on the trail.
Yeah.
How much of her, I have my assumption, but how much of her is you?
I think there's a lot of commonality. The story starts with a loud bang that I have a lot of experience with. I won't say too much about that if you haven't already heard. I think Luce is me, but braver, but louder, but more angsty. I didn't think I had the time to do that in private, but I felt kind of corny, especially because the image I had of being angsty was very pale and thin and wispy, and at the time, it was not. So I think Luce is this concentration of almost what I wish I could have come out like. Earlier, louder. The first word that came to mind was meaner. And I'm almost earnest about that because I think that I really love the idea of being soft and trans, and I've been afforded the space to be that more than once, and it's been lovely. But I also love to be scary to people that don't like me. I like to ruin the days of people that are transphobic with my very presence, because I know that it happens. I know that sometimes people see me and they dislike me so much that they'll go back home and they'll tell their families that they saw a trans person they didn't care for.
Yeah, I have to add, you are speaking all of this very powerful sort of experience and message with a bear mask on. And it is like, I'm like loving this, like I'm claiming this identity and this space, and I am fucking adorable.
Fuck yes. And I was initially gonna get I got this next to the Hello Kitty store, and I was really sure. Initially, there was this one with the Gothic font, and I think it said something like, it either said fuck 12 or fuck 13. And either one was very engaging to me. And I feel like my girlfriend looked at me and she's like, which one of these are you going to choose? And it felt like such a character select screen in a fighting game.
This was the moment.
Two genders.
Yeah.
The two genders are bear and fuck 13. Come up on the right was one of the areas that made me think that this would work. Initially, I was talking to a lot of people that I walked on trails with and trying to figure out what would the best place to be, because initially, I believed that I should have a story that is completely in the arbor. There should be no trace of anything inorganic. There should be no trace of cars or people. I want it to be empty. I want no one to be here, and I don't want any fun. But over time, I thought it was really special. You can hear the highway. You can see that people have been here. You can see that people are here. But everything's still living. And I definitely feel a lot of kinship for that. This, in the story, pretend there's still water here. Just for the sake of it. And there will be, there might be. But if there's not, focus on the dew and imagine that the dew is very deep.
Very deep dew.
Deep dew.
What happens here?
This is a place where you meet the first two gods that will be on this trail. And you hear them and you sneak past them. And I do believe them to be very lovely. And the voice actors who did this, I could not have picked better people if you gave me 1,000 years. And Adrienne knew exactly who they were going to be. And the only one who she didn't know was going to be was Luce, the character that was obviously really heavily inspired by myself, and that I obviously modeled after my own speech, and that I obviously wanted to play but didn't want to say.
You're being too modest.
But
ultimately you did.
I did, and it worked out great. I really liked it. This is a big story place. I didn't notice that there was a mouth, but it was a big story place before there was a mouth. Pretend I either made or meant for the mouth.
We can do that. We can pretend that for you.
Thank you so much. Please do that in post. I really love it here. I think it's so special. I love seeing moss on things. And when I came here, I immediately knew who was going to be here. And this is one of the places where I was getting really sure that I wanted it to be here. And not any other place, even on the Chester Valley Trail, much less any other trail.
So you're not going to tell us what happens here, but
I want to be very coy about it. I want to be very coy. There's a goddess who is very much, I'd say, loves you in the kind of way where she tells you she doesn't like your hair, but otherwise you'd be super beautiful.
Got it.
Yeah, that's kind of where we're at here. Welcome to this church of brutalism. It's human high. I love it here. I think it's pretty. I'm trying to go down. This is the place. There is water. You can't see it right now. And you can hear it a little. I don't know if you guys can.
But we can.
Yeah.
We can make water sounds to make it sound. Oh, yeah.
Around here. And I'm glad that even when you don't visibly see a great deal of water, that you know water should be here.
Yes.
Because it definitely feels like that. And it feels magic. And even more magic when you see the little, what is this called?
Cattails?
Cattails. They look like bad corn dogs.
Yes.
And I like that.
I've
definitely
eaten those before.
Really? Are they good?
They have a funny texture, but I like the flavor.
Raw?
No, they were cooked. It was in Canada. It was in
Okay.
Canada.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with how to cook them, or I would definitely think about it. Because I've always looked at those and thought, those look delicious.
So I'm gonna hand the reins over to Lizzie. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Adrienne. Hi, Ari. And hey, everyone who's joining us. Thank you for accepting me late into your embrace. And thank you for watching that video. I hope you enjoyed it. When I was putting it together, I realized that the last video clip we took, Ari, ended with you saying, "That looks delicious." And there was no better way to end it. I thought that was perfection. But yeah, it was such a pleasure to be walking with you on the trail earlier this week and to see it sort of from your perspective. And re-watching that video, one of my favorite things that you said that really stuck with me, throughout the week was that despite the fact that people have been here and are here, and there's all this development in the area, you can hear the highway, you can see the cars, you can see the parking garages, things are still living here despite all of this. There's still a really vibrant nature and natural space. And I'm interested in, I've been thinking about it all week. Could you expand on that idea a little bit more, what that means to you?
Yeah, definitely. I think, and I'm sure Adrienne can speak to this, that I wanted this to be so macabre in the beginning of it. And I was very serious about it because I really strongly believe the Aztecs to be the first emos, first pop punk supporters, because everything was very dark, everything was very bloody, and that's not to say there isn't a lot of blood or darkness in my story. But it's to say that this trail isn't supposed to make you forget about humanity, isn't supposed to be outside of this. It's an underworld narrative, but you're closer to being a ghost than you are to being a wayward spirit in another place. So being there, seeing all of nature around me, I thought it was such a poignant metaphor for surviving as a queer person in a place where you're not welcome. It was really special, as in this story, and I think you said it this way, it feels like a secret when you're walking with it. It feels like you're keeping something from people around you, which I'm very acquainted with.
Well, and that too, I mean, we've been talking about, when we were conceiving of TrailOff, talking about highlighting hidden gems of the Circuit Trails Network and these places that you might walk past without seeing, or kind of noticing how special they are, and thinking that the local authors like yourself that were working on this project sort of have the wherewithal or the inspiration to look at spaces a little bit more optimistically, maybe, or critically also on sort of the other hand. And it was really cool walking the trail with you. And anybody who does the trail experience will, I think, feel this just by the nature of the GPS triggers, but how the places that you picked out that you commented on being so special, were a parking garage in some cases, or this, like, where you were saying that it's so wonderful that there's water here and you can tell that there's water because of the cattails. That was like a, where the overflow goes from the dried up, or not dried up, but like the places that they have covered the water. And I don't know how much you have to say about this besides just that it is the way you saw this space and maybe see the world, but how were you inspired by the areas that we stopped at and that the folks who are following your story will stop at? What was it about some of these spaces that really spoke to you?
I think I've never seen any of these gods as having a truly corporeal form. There's never been a moment in the story where I thought of them as like walking around, except for dog. So when I was looking at places, I was looking at places that had character. The first place that we meet two of the gods, we have a rock face above a basin. And I thought that's such a lovely place for these two gods to have a conversation. And then the parking garage is probably my second favorite place, the whole place, because even the characters are kind of complaining about this fact that the humans are very noisy. They really let stone be stone and let water be water, and humans are very insistent on making them square, referring to the parking garage as a hive. And I would say the strongest point, and Lizzie, we really have to go there, and Adrienne knows exactly what I'm talking about, that the grand finale of this is the most perfect place to end this story. It is the place that is truly, you get to go through all of this beautiful forest. I saw an owl, a little baby owl this big over there. And that was really a sign that I was going in the right direction. And that owl was correct. Because the second I walked down there, I see a place, not to spoil too much, that felt like you would face a final boss, that felt like you were in a position where something momentous was about to happen.
There's something so like queer about that too, like seeing in these pieces something that's like beautiful or momentous, or just like seeing something out of the ordinary in the ordinary. That like that the final boss can exist in this landscape that people used to commute on. That's really exciting to me. And so another thing I wanted to ask you about, and I hope this isn't too like, you know, this wasn't like our special time on the trail together, but you had mentioned that something that doesn't come up too much in the audio story that folks can listen to. This is sort of like a thanks for coming to the launch event secret, that in your writing draft or in your conception of the relationship between Luce and Dog, there's something of a love affair.
Yeah, so I was going through a lot of different iterations of what Dog would look like. Originally, Dog would speak directly to the person walking on the trail. That idea was thrown away pretty quick because Adrienne talked about this idea of gamification. And I can speak to this, for example, playing Skyrim. I have my character and they tell me like, go on this quest and kill the dragon. And I'm like, no, I'm going to fuck off and get 100 baskets and put them in my house. So, so that kind of, you can't really stop people from doing that, especially because they just have complete free will. So as much as you can tell them they have to feel or do something, they're not going to do it. But that metamorphosized into, what about this little relationship that could be had where there's a quiet romance that for the story, I didn't think I could do it justice. But at the end of the time, I had to write a piece for a writing class. I didn't know what I was going to do other than I could use this story somehow. So I wrote a 100-page prose poem about it. And in that, I realized that Luce and Dog's bond was really complicated because there was so much more room and I had to fill it so much more. So I really enjoyed it for one reason in particular, that because the gods don't exactly have physical form, like Dog will be described as like a mass of beads and smoke and just the sound of chimes, and Luce will be like, he's kind of cute though, like so I always thought that was engaging, and I wanted to play around with that because I thought it played into the kind of teen angst. I really think of movies like I watched Jennifer's Body after I did this trail, but looking back, watching Jennifer's Body, I was like, oh, shit, this is in the same genre. This is in the same place as that movie.
It makes me think a lot about the like Yaoi Rurouni Kenshin fan fiction that I would read growing up and just be like couldn't handle myself. I was like so turned on and excited about it. And like that idea of the sort of like, the shape doesn't matter. It's just this like connection and they're like, what an intimate plane to be on, their journey together. Like, how can you not fall in love with the person who's like, or the thing, the spirit, the energy that is taking you, you know, along this trail. I'm like, knowing that it gives like a whole new level. I'm like super, I mean, like maybe I'm weirdly kinky, who knows? But that I'm like really
I think it can all be linked. In particular, in that story, there's a whole section where they're sitting down and they're talking about their exes, and I forget what the exact myth is, but there's a story about Dog's God, which we will go into a little more depth in the story itself. Where he falls in love, and at one point he cries so much his eyes fall out, and he says this to Lucy. He's like, "Oh, I cried so much my eyes fell out," and he's like, "Well, my boyfriend jumped off a roof, and I cried so much I wish my eyes fell out." And that kind of bond that they have gets a lot more room to breathe. And in that story, you get to hear about like famous Mexican people that walked the trail after dying. So you get people like Diego Rivera, you get like wrestlers, you get Selena. A lot of people get to walk down this trail, and I think it gives dog a lot more room to breathe and to be gay.
Do you think that this relationship that Dog and Luce have, has this been replicated with other folks that Dog has led down the trail, or is this special to Luce and Dog?
There are so many different aspects, yes. I feel like Luce is really the conglomeration of a lot of different people, because I forget who it was. There's an actor who goes down the trail who was this like Mexican heartthrob in old movies, like black and white. And him and Dog just fuck the earth raw. Like really. There's no pretty way to say it. There's just like that whole scene is like very rough. And there's other people that he has a very strong connection to. Like in particular, Frida Kahlo dies and is like saying, will you ask Diego about me? And he's like, yeah. And Diego's immediately an asshole, just truly like he was in real life, like a dick. And a big part of Dog that I won't get into too much, that he has to kill these people at the end. A big part of it is it's an underworld narrative that's not much of a spoiler, that this walk, the end game is an execution. And Dog has had to do this to a lot of people. And for some people, it's easier than others.
Wow, that just gave me chills. I'm sorry. I also, so moving away from the TrailOff story itself, you have been getting into music making.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you want to tell folks about what that has been like for you, and if there's ways to interact with your music.
For sure. I'll definitely talk to the team about maybe putting something up there. I've been very I feel like if I was making music at an age where I could just hand cassette tapes out to people, that would be exactly how I would be doing it, because it's like a secret that I tell people. It's a secret that I would be willing to share if we weren't in a global pandemic, but it is certainly a little secret. I have been doing poetry for a long time. It's the first thing I felt good at. One of the first things I felt good at. And I got really, really into it. And I put all of my spoons, all of my eggs in one basket, just really, really went in. And over time, I realized that I felt really good at it, but I wasn't having a lot of fun. And I love to write, but I don't love to be scored. I was a slam poet for a while, and I think spoken word and slam get equivocated, I think is the word. They get marked as the same thing, when spoken word is you have a very nice time and you say your poem out loud. And slam is you go up on a stage, you disembowel yourself emotionally, and the more you cry, the higher you were scored out of 10. And that's not a lot of fun, especially when you are starting to get happier. So the happier I got, the more I realized that that was just upsetting me a great deal. So when I started making music, it was something that was fun. And even when I was making serious music, it was something that felt new. It felt like someone gave me something. When it was a whole new area to play with. And I feel like it was a lot more acceptable for me to say dumb shit. And in particular, I rap, and it was hard to feel like anything I said wasn't bullshit, because I started out as a theater vocalist, and I was working a lot in theater, and I stopped doing theater because I didn't like anyone in theater, and also because I didn't like my voice enough to keep going. I'm gonna pick him up. So I was starting music as this thing where it would just be fun, where I would just take myself into a place and let myself play there. And I performed plenty live, but I wasn't really used to recording until very recently. And it's so much fun. It's so ridiculous to be in a room, and if no one knows you're recording, you're just like yelling in your room. And it's been special. It's been he really wants me to exit out of this call.
Well, we are almost at the end of our hour, but I would love to be able to share your secret music with folks as well. I'm excited to hear it. Well, and a challenge that I would give as we're wrapping up this conversation to anyone who is going to head out to the Chester Valley Trail to check out your amazing story is to write some Yowie fan fiction about the characters. Please. And send it back. We'll post it all over the interwebs.
Yeah, I will read every single one. I just want to bring that up.
So that is my challenge to all attending and all throughout the whole year that TrailOff is available. I want to see your Yowie fan fiction.
Yes, go in.
Well, Ari, thank you so much for the work that you have done, the perspective that you have brought to this trail, and hanging out with me.
Such a joy. Oh my gosh. Well, if you guys want to see it, it's right there. You guys are welcome to have that little link.
Amazing. There's a link in the chats to some of Ari's music.
Little bit. It's a lot of fun. Thank you guys for having me, and I love this project. I've said it more than once, and I'll say it 100 more times, that this is the most fun that I've ever had doing anything. And yeah, I was going to say making art, but it's generally just the most fun I've ever had, where I get to do all my favorite things. I get to hike, I get to write, I get to talk to people. I got to voice act, which is the thing that was something off my bucket list. I always saw this Lion King behind the scenes thing. I was like, fuck, I want to be Pumbaa. So that worked out great.
It's been a pleasure working with you. And I'm excited for all of TrailOff to continue throughout the year.
Of course.
Yay.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, everybody. A reminder to download the app, and hope to see you out on a trail soon.